Today we're going to start with a story from the Bible that tends to leave a lot of people scratching their heads when they read it. Hundreds of years before Jesus, when God's people were still waiting for the promised Savior to come, they carried something with them called the Ark of the Covenant. There's a lot that can be said about the Ark, but the thing relevant to know for this story is that the Ark signified God's presence with the people. And because of what and who the Ark represented, there were various rules about how it should be treated, and it was against the law to touch it. One day, when they were moving the Ark from one town to another, there was an incident. The Ark was resting on a cart that was being pulled by some oxen, and the animal stumbled, which put the Ark at risk of tumbling onto the ground. When this happened, a man who was escorting the cart reached out and he put his hand on the Ark to keep it from falling. And when he did this, God struck him down and he died. Wow. This may seem like a strange story, and this may have us questioning things like we did when the first humans ate the forbidden fruit. He just touched a box. He was trying to save the Ark from falling. God shouldn't have judged him. If anything, God should have thanked him. And if this is our response, then we've probably made the same mistake that the man made when he touched the Ark. This man didn't really understand who God was, and he didn't really understand who he was in comparison. Because if he knew these things, then he wouldn't have made the mistake of thinking that the Ark would be cleaner in his hands than it would be in the dirt. One of the most important attributes of God is also one of the most commonly misunderstood. This attribute that I'm talking about is God's holiness. While you've probably heard the word holy before, it wouldn't be surprising if you're not really sure what it means. In the Bible, to be holy means to be completely set apart. And when we say that God is holy, we mean that He is completely set apart from His creation. For example, God isn't limited like His creation is, and God can't be harmed or destroyed like His creation can. And since humans are a part of God's creation, there are many ways that He's set apart from us as well. God doesn't think like we do. God doesn't have the same desires that we have. He doesn't have the same standards that we have. And among other things, unlike us, God isn't sinful, and He doesn't approve or accept sin. We humans tend to think very highly of ourselves. We like to think that we know what's going on around us, and that we understand the world better than anyone else. We like to think that we're good, that we know right from wrong, and that on top of just knowing what's right, we actually do the right things too. It's not surprising that we think this way because we usually just compare ourselves to other people who are sinful just like us. But comparing ourselves to other people doesn't help us to understand reality very well, and in fact, it actually stops us from seeing things how they really are. If we want to know if we're good, then we need to compare ourselves to something that's truly good. We need to compare ourselves to God, who's the standard of goodness. If we want to see what it looks like when human goodness meets God's goodness and holiness, then all we need to do is look at what happened to the man who touched the Ark. Just like us, this man probably thought he was mostly good. He thought he was doing the right thing. He thought that he was clean enough that he could enter the presence of God and come away unchanged. And he thought these things because somewhere deep down, he thought that God was just like him. And he was wrong. This tendency to think wrongly about God is also one of the reasons that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross seems so strange to us. If we think that God is just like us, as most people do, then it doesn't seem like we need anyone to help us. If I think I'm better than most of the people I see, then I'll probably think that I'm good enough for God. I'll be happy to try and earn God's favor because I'll expect to get it, and then I'll get to feel good about myself because I earned it. But if we know who God is, then we know we need help. If I understand God's goodness and righteousness, then I'll know that I'm not good at all. And the only way I could ever be clean enough to survive God's holiness is if God Himself is the one doing the cleaning. The gospel tells us something that seems absolutely backwards to our sinful minds. The gospel says, stop trying to save yourself, and instead trust in Jesus and what He did. Instead of working your life away trying to be good enough, give yourself up to God and trust that Jesus was good in your place.